it's not leaning. That being an indication of a suspension problem or tire failure. Next, I'm going to look under the vehicle for leaks, fuel, oil, coolant, etc. My license plate is securely mounted on missing parts, not cracked or broke. It's clean and reflective, and the registration is current in the cab. Next, I'm going to check all my lights. The light to the screen right here where you can touch this headlight. I'm going to check all my lights. I have full truck. My clearance or overhead lights, marker lights on the tractor and trailer, headlights, high and low beams, left and right turn signals, four-way flashers, tail and brake lights on the tractor and trailer, and reverse light on the tractor. All of them are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. All of them are clean and clear. They're clear and amber on the front of the tractor and the trailer. They're red on the back of the tractor and the trailer. The reverse light is white on the back of the tractor. They all work. I'm going to check them. Will you help me check my lights? And they might say, yeah, or later. So you go to your passenger side, and you're going to start with hoses. I want you to touch both hard and soft hoses. So I'm going to check all my hoses. They're securely mounted at both ends. They're not missing parts. They're not cracked or broke, ripped or torn, and no holes, not leaking. I'm going to check my clamps. All of them are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. I'm going to check my alternator. It is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, and it is belt driven. My belt is securely mounted, not ripped or torn, no more than 1/2 inch play on this serpentine belt. Check the wires on the back of the alternator and wires all around the truck. All of them are securely mounted, not missing parts, not ripped or torn, no exposed wires. Next, I'm going to check my water pump. It is belt driven, securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, and it is not leaking. Next, I'm going to check my coolant reservoir. It is securely mounted, not missing parts, it's not cracked or broke, the levels between add and full, the cap is on tight, not cracked or broke or leaking, and that reservoir is not leaking. And we're going to go around to the driver's side of the engine compartment. And we get to refer some things that are exactly the same. So I'm going to check my hoses on this side of the engine the same way as I check my hoses on that side of the engine. I'm going to check all my clamps on this side of the engine, same as I check my clamps on that side of the engine. I'm going to check all my wires on this side of the engine, same way as I check my wires on that side of the engine. Now I'm going to start at the top and work down. This is my oil filler cap. It is on tight, not cracked or broke or leaking. I'm going to check the oil level at the dipstick to make sure it's between add and full. You will pull this out, wipe it off, shove it back in. Here's a cloth to do it with. Pull it out again and say it's between add and full, and then shove it back in there. And you'll say that dipstick assembly is not leaking. Under the oil, you're going to go to your air compressor. Next, I'm going to check my air compressor. It's gear driven, securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, and it's not leaking. Pull your stick out and put it right back in the same spot. Next, I'm going to check my power steering pump. It's gear driven, securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, and it's not leaking. Power steering pump leads me to my power steering reservoir. It is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. The fluid level is between add and full. Both power steering reservoir caps are on tight, they're not cracked or broke or leaking, and that reservoir is not leaking. Next, I'm going to check my power steering hoses. I have a low pressure here and a high pressure right there. These are securely mounted, not missing parts, not ripped or torn, no holes, not leaking. That leads me to my steering rod. It is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. Follow it down. The U-joints are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. There's 3 extra things you're going to say about your U-joints. They are not excessively worn. They are lubed, and there's no debris. Next, I'm going to check my steering gearbox. It is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, and it's not leaking. My pitman arm is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. My drag link is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. And down behind the steer axle is the tie rod. It's securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. And finish up steering with this particular castle nut. There's a whole bunch of them in there, but finished with this one. All my castle nuts are present, tight, and cotter pinned. These are my spring leaf hangers. Don't point at this. This is a bracket that holds your spring leaf. These are your hangers. My hangers are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. These are my leaf springs. They're securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. They're all there and none have shifted. These are my U-bolts. My U-bolts are all securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, and all their washers and nuts are present and on tight. Way in the back of the leaf springs are my shackles. These are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. And the last thing I mention is your shock absorbers. All my shock absorbers are securely mounted, not missing parts. They're not cracked or broke, and they are not leaking. That leads me right into my brake assembly. So I'm going to talk about my brake airlines first. These are all securely mounted at both ends, not missing parts. They're not ripped or torn, no holes, not leaking. They're not rubbing on anything, and they are not excessively worn. Those go right into my brake chambers. All the brake chambers are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. They're not dented. That word is on the test. They are not leaking. That leads me to my brake chamber clamps. All of them are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. Just follow it up. This horseshoe looking shiny thing is your push rods. All my push rods are securely mounted, not missing parts. They're not cracked or broke. And put your fist like this and go like this and say there's no more than 1 inch play manually on the push rods. You don't have to pull it out, just do that with your fist. These are my slack adjusters. All of these are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, and they are not leaking. All my slack adjusters must be pinned and cotter pinned to the push rods. Inside here are my brake drums. All my brake drums are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. There's no heat discoloration or oil contamination. And put your stick right back in there. Next thing, you check my brake shoes. All of these are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. No heat discoloration or oil contamination. And the shoes must be at least 1/4 inch thick. Thicker is better. Next, I'm going to check the inner and outer sidewalls of my steer tires. All these steer tires. To make sure there's no ABCs, there's no abrasions, bulges, or cuts. Tread wear must be even all the way around the tire, and there's no chunks out of the tread. Tread depth is no less than 4/32 of an inch. These tires cannot be recapped, retreaded, or regrooved. I'm going to check the inflation on the tire to the manufacturer specification written on the tire, and I'm going to check this with a tire gauge. That leads me to my valve stems. All my valve stems are securely mounted on missing parts, not cracked or broken, they're not leaking. All my valve stem caps are present and on tight, and they're not leaking. That leads me to my wheels or rims. All of these are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. There's no illegal welds, and the lug holes are not distorted. That leads me to my lug nuts. All the lug nuts are present and tight. Indication of a loose lug nut would be shiny threads or rust trail on the wheel. That leads me to my hub oilers. All my hub oilers are securely mounted. They're not missing parts. They're not cracked or broke. They are full. They are capped. They are not leaking. That leads me to my fuse box. You can touch either one or both. My fuse box is securely mounted, no missing parts, not cracked or broke. If I have any missing or blown fuses, there's extra in here with them, and there's extras in the cab. Now if I only had A right after the fuse box, I'm going to get my half tubes. Airlines, glad hands, electrical connection, clearance in 2 places, and my 5th wheel coupler. But I'm pretending like I have full truck, so right after my fuse box, instead of going there, I'm going to go right to my mirror brackets. If you have B, this is where you start. If you had full truck, right after fuse box, you go right to where you start in B. Now you're going to get full truck or B, you're going to get mirror brackets and glass in the mirrors twice. Once out here, and once when you do them in your in cab. That's how you start your in cab. So my mirror brackets are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. Glass in my mirrors are securely mounted, and missing parts, not cracked or broke. They're clean and reflective. My doors are securely mounted, they're not missing parts, they're not cracked or broke. They open and close. The seals or gaskets, they are securely mounted, not ripped or torn, and they don't leak. My hinges are all securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. The windows must go up and down, as these can be used as an escape in case of an emergency. Next thing I'm going to check my steps. All of these are securely mounted. They're not missing any parts, they're not cracked or broke. There's no debris, they hold my weight, and there's no holes large enough for an adult to step through. Next, I'm going to check the connections between my fuel tanks. You just point at those lines over there. They are all securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, ripped or torn, because they are both hard and soft. And they are not leaking. And that leads you right to your fuel tank. My fuel tank is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, no holes, not leaking. The fuel tank cap is on tight, not cracked or broke or leaking. The fuel tank straps, they are securely mounted, not missing parts, they're not cracked or broke. Indication of a loose strap is shiny marks on the metal, or that gasket would be out of place or distorted. This is my DEF tank. It is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. No holes, not leaking. It must be at least 1/8 full. Cap is on tight, not cracked or broke or leaking. Follow it back. This is what I come up next is my battery box. Don't take this off. The battery box is securely mounted. It's not missing parts. It's not cracked or broke. It's closed and locked. So now you imagine your batteries. My batteries I'm going to check. They're securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. They have not been swollen and they're not leaking. All the battery caps are on tight. They're not cracked or broke or leaking. I'm going to check the electrical connection at both ends. These are securely mounted, not missing parts, not ripped or torn, no exposed wires. They have good electrical contact and there is no corrosion. That leads me to my catwalk. Same words as steps. My catwalk are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. There's no debris, it holds my weight, no holes large enough for an adult to step through. Kids aren't supposed to be up here. The 3 major components under the catwalk is your exhaust, driveline, frame with cross members. So I'm going to check my exhaust from where to where. I'm going to check my exhaust from the exhaust manifold through the turbo all the way to the back. In other words, the entire thing is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, no holes, not leaking. Indication of a leak would be carbon soot, rust, or excessive noise when the engine's running. I'm going to check my drive line. The entire drive line is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. There's no debris wrapped around the drive line. The U-joints, they are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. They are not excessively worn. They are lubed, and there's no debris in those guys either. Next, I'm going to check my frame. The frame is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. There's no illegal welds or holes. The cross members, they are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. There's no illegal welds or holes. Now I come up on my half-T's. I'm going to check my air lines from the cab of the tractor all the way into and through the glad hand through the trailer. They're securely mounted at both ends. They're not missing any parts. They're not ripped or torn, no holes, not leaking. They have not been spliced. They're not kinked or chafed. They're not dragging on the catwalk. I'm going to check my glad hands. They are securely mounted, not missing parts. They're not cracked or broke. They're in the locked position. They are sealed. They are not leaking. I'm going to check my electrical connection from the cab of the tractor all the way into and through the trailer. It is securely mounted at both ends and locked. It's not missing any parts. It's not ripped or torn, no bare wires, not dragging on the catwalk. There's clearance between the front of the trailer and the back of the cab, so when it turns it doesn't touch. There's clearance between the landing gear and the back of the tractor for the same reason, to accommodate turns, or so when it turns it doesn't touch. Next, I'm going to check my fifth wheel coupler assembly. I'm going to check the entire fifth wheel, the entire thing. This is the lower platform from the pivot pin down. It is securely mounted to the frame rails of the tractor. It's not missing any parts. All the nuts and bolts and washers are all present and untight. Nothing is cracked or broke. This is the upper platform or skid plate. It is securely mounted to the lower platform by these pivot pins. There's one on both sides. The pivot pins are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. They're held in place by these locking pins. There's one on both sides. The locking pins are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. They're held in place by these cotter keys or cotter pins. There's one on both sides. They're securely mounted, not cracked or broke. This is my release handle. It's in the lock position. Securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. This is my release handle rod and release handle rod spring. These are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, and the spring is not stretched or distorted. When we go behind it, there's only three more things to talk about. Next, I'm going to check my locking jaws. They're securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. They are lubricated and securely locked around the kingpin. The kingpin is securely mounted to the apron of the trailer. The kingpin is not cracked or broke. The apron of the trailer is securely mounted to the frame of the trailer. It's not cracked or broken, there's no holes in it. And there's no cracked or broken welds. There's no space or gap or daylight between the apron of the trailer and the skid plate of that fifth wheel. And that skid plate is lubed. Right after that, if you have full truck or B, if I was on A, that's it. I would stop there. But B or full truck, since you're here, I'm going to get the tail lights, brake lights, and reverse light on the back of the tractor. These are all securely mounted on missing parts, not cracked or broke. All of them are clean and clear. The taillights and brake lights are red. The reverse light is white. They all work. I'm going to check them. Will you help me check my lights? And they might say we've already done that. Good. Next, I'm going to check my mud flaps. Just follow it from lights right on out. My mud flaps are securely mounted. They're not missing parts. They're not cracked or broke. The rubber is not ripped or torn and must be within 8 inches of the ground. A brother or sister to the mud flap is your fenders. My fenders are all securely mounted. They're not missing parts. They're not cracked or broke. There's no debris between the fenders and the tires, and the fenders cannot be touching the tires. Right after that, I'm going to go to my suspension. If you have full truck, you get to refer your suspension. If you only have B, you have to do 1, 2, 3 about each part to the component of suspension. but I'm going to refer to you so that you see what referring is like. So I'm going to check my hangers on the drive axle the same way as I check my hangers on the steer axle. I'm going to check my leaf springs on the drive axle, same as I did on the steers. I'm going to check my U-bolts, washers, and nuts on the drives, same as I did on the steers. I'm going to check my shock absorbers back here on the drives, same as I did on the steers. But here's a difference. Back here on the suspension of my drives are airbags. Since they're not up there, I got to go 1, 2, 3. So the airbags are securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. The bag is not ripped or torn, no holes, not leaking. And I'm done with suspension. Luckily, the component of brakes is all the same parts on every axle. So it's hard to see brakes on this side, but I can stand here and point at the other side, and that's good enough for DMV. So I'm going to check my brake airlines on the drive axle, same as I checked them on the steer axle. I'm going to check my brake chambers on the drive axle, same as I did on the steer axle. I'm going to check my brake chamber clamps on the drive axle, same as I did on the steer axle. I'm going to check my push rods right there on my push rods back here on the drive axle, same as I did on the steer axle. I'm going to check the slack adjusters on the drive axle, same as I did on my steers. And my pins and cotter pins on the drive axle, same as I did on my steers. I can kind of see my brake drums over here a little bit. So I'm going to check my brake drums on the drive axle, same as I did on the steers. I'm going to check my brake shoes on this drive axle, same as I did on the steers. And then I would be done with brakes. When I go to tires, these drive tires are dualies where those are singles. So I can only refer what is exactly the same here to there. So these are drive tires. They're dualies, so they cannot be mismatched. There can be no debris between the tires. There must be space between the tires. Tread depth is no less than 2/32 of an inch. I'm going to check the inner and outer sidewalls on the drives, same as I did on the steers. I'm going to check the tread wear is even and no chunks out of the tread all the way around the tires, same as I did on the steers. If you want to say it, you don't have to, but you can say these can be recapped, retreaded, and regrooved. I'm going to check the inflation on the drives to the manufacturer's specification written on the tires, same as I did up there. And I'm going to check it with a tire gauge back here, same as I did up there. I'm going to check my valve stems back here, same as I did up there. Valve stem caps back here, same as I did up there. These wheels are dualies, where those are singles, so there can be no space or gap between the wheels. Otherwise, I'm checking these wheels the same way as I did up there. If I only had B, securely mounted on missing parts, not cracked or broke, no illegal welds, and the lug holes are not distorted. I'm going to check the lug nuts back here on the drive, same as I did on the steers. This is different. This is called an axle cap, where those are called hub oilers, but it's the same words. The axle caps are securely mounted. They're not missing parts. They're not cracked or broke. They're full, capped, and not leaking. And right there I would be done with B. If I had full truck or C, if I had full truck, I would have already gotten the half tube, which are airlines, glad hands, electrical connection, clearance in 2 places, and your 5th wheel coupler. If I have only C, I'll start with the half tubes, and then I'm going to go into my trailer frame. So that's where we're going to go with your video, so we're not wasting too much time on space. My trailer frame is securely mounted, no missing parts, not cracked or broke, no illegal welds or holes. I'm going to check my cross members. These are all securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, no illegal welds or holes. My deck or bed is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke, holds my weight, no debris, no holes large enough for an adult to step through. Next, I'm going to check all my lights and reflectors. See how I pointed it out twice? Because every light has a reflector in it, except our headlights, and then the new trucks are all around it. So I'm going to check all my lights, reflectors, and reflective tape on the trailer. All of these are securely mounted, not missing parts. They're not cracked or broke, ripped or torn. They're all clean and clear. They're amber and white in the front and red in the back. All the lights work. I'm going to check them. Will you help me check them? And the reflective tape covers 50% of the side. Next, I'm going to check my tie downs. We used to have to say hook and ratchet tie. Now it's just tie downs. They're all securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. My landing gear is higher assembly is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. The feet are raised as high as they will go. No debris in the feet, and the crank handles in the slowed position. Next, I'm going to check my airlines under the whole length of the trailer. And you're going to get down and you're going to point from front to back or back to front. I'm going to check the airlines under the whole length of the trailer, the same way as I checked them on the front of the trailer. The only difference is these cannot be dragging on the ground, where those cannot be dragging on the catwalk. Next, I'm going to check my electrical lines under the trailer, same words, the same way as I did on the front of the trailer. The only difference is these cannot be dragging on the ground, where those cannot be dragging on the catwalk. Then you pivot around. Next, I'm going to check my suspension, my torque rod and torsion bars. These are all securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. These are my hangers. If you have full truck, you can refer. I'm going to check my hangers back here, same as I did up there. I'm going to check my leaf springs back here, same as I did up there. My U-bolts back here, same as I did up there. There are washers and nuts back here, same as I did up there. And I have hangers back there. You can call these leading hangers and those trailing hangers, or just hangers. I'm going to check the hangers back there, same as I did up there. Next, I'm going to check my brake airlines back here, same as I did up there. My brake chambers back here, same as I did up there. My brake chamber clamps back here, same as I did up there. And then I'm going to go around to the back. It's easier to see the rest of the brake component in the back of the trailer. You can have right here. These are my push rods. I'm going to check my push rods back here, same as I did up front. I'm going to check my slack adjusters back here, same as I did up front. I'm going to make sure that they're pinned and cotter pinned back here, same as I did up front. And over here on my brake drums, I'm going to check those, same as I did up front. And these are my brake shoes. I'm going to check these back here, same as I did up front. See how easy it is to see them? Here's your brake shoes. Then I'm going to check my tires. These are called trailer dualies. So those are drive dualies. Luckily, every word you say about your trailer dualies are the exact same words you say about your drive dualies. I'm going to check my trailer wheels. Everything you're going to say about your trailer dually wheels are the same words as you say about your drive dually wheels. I'm going to check my valve stems, same as I did up there. My valve stem caps back here, same as I did up there. I'm going to check my lug nuts back here, same as I did up there. Now this has hub oilers, so I check these the same as I did on the steer axle, because those are axle caps. If you only have C, trailer, these are hub oilers, securely mounted, no missing parts, not cracked or broke. They are full, they are capped, they are not leaking. If you have full truck, you'll say the only difference between these hub oilers and the ones on the steer axle is these have a sight glass where those do not. Then you just walk around, you grab your mud flap. I'm going to check my mud flaps back here, same as I did up there. I'm going to check my tail lights, brake lights, running lights, and reflective tape on the back of the trailer. If you only have trailer, all of these are securely mounted, no missing parts, not cracked or broke, not ripped or torn, they're clean and clear. The tail lights, brake lights, and running lights are all red. The reflective tape is white in the front and red in the back. All the lights work. I'm going to check them. Will you help me check them? And the reflective tape covers 100% of the back. I'm going to check my license plate. It is securely mounted, not missing parts, not cracked or broke. It's clean and reflective, and the registration is current, and it's located right up here by the landing gear in this box. I want you to walk up and point at that box. That's where the registration is located in these trailers. And then when you come back, you're almost done with full truck. Right after that, you're going to talk about your glad hands. I'm going to check the glad hands on the back of the trailer, same as I did on the front of the trailer. The only difference is these are closed and locked and not leaking. I'm going to check my tie downs on the back of the trailer, same as I check my tie downs on the side of the trailer. And then Jared says, hold your stick like this and don't walk in front of it. I'll tell you why in a minute. You're going to say, I'm going to check everything on this side of the trailer and tractor as I did on that side of the trailer and tractor. If you walk forward and say, I'm going to check everything on this side of the trailer and tractor as I did on that side, one guy has said, oh, you missed, you failed. So stay back where you are and wave your hand and say, I'm going to check everything. And then you're going to get up there, close and lock that hood, and you do your in-cabin hood test. All right?